Welcome to the Becoming Superhuman podcast, where we interview extraordinary people to bring you the skills and strategies to overcome the impossible. And now, here's your host, Jonathan Levy.
Before we get started, I want to ask you, what would it mean for you to be able to double or even triple your memory and ability to learn? So many people tell us that this skill would be absolutely life-changing for them, but they just don't have the time. They just don't have the time. So that's why we have developed, my team and I, a 5-day memory mastery crash course where we go into all the fundamental neuroscience and the actual techniques that are used by the world's best memory athletes and world record holders. It's a course that we value at $97, but here's the thing. We are actually giving this course away completely for free. All you have to do to enroll in the course is visit jle.vi/5. That's jle.vi/5. Greetings, super friends, and welcome to a very, very special episode. But before we get into that very special episode, let me just read this funny review from Max the Kid from the US of A, who gave us a 5-star review for title, Eye-Catching Art Body. Haven't listened yet, but awesome artwork. You know what, Max? I'll take it. And for any of you who haven't left a review, it literally has to be that much effort. And we will take it and we will read it out on the air, and it will cause us to produce yet another incredible show for you to enjoy every week. Now, on the topic of incredible shows, you guys, I have a treat for you today. Many of you, if you've been on the show for any period of time, have heard the name Joe Polish. And if you haven't, well, Joe is the reason I know about half or 75% of our recent guests. He is the founder of the I Love Marketing podcast, founder of Piranha Marketer, and the founder of Genius Network, the world's greatest high-level entrepreneur mastermind, where I and entrepreneurs like me spend about $25,000. I think this year, actually, I spent $35,000 to get into a room with other high-level entrepreneurs and thought leaders. Now, beyond that, Joe is what I often refer to him as is the most beloved marketer in the world. He's a marketing expert, and his ability not just to market, but also to build relationships and maintain relationships has put him on the Rolodex and first name basis of people like Tony Robbins, Peter Diamandis, Ray Kurzweil, Tim Ferriss, Richard Branson. The list goes literally on and on and on and on. When I was hanging out with Joe, he got a missed call from, well, I won't say who, but very, very, very impressive people. And he is constantly in contact with some of the world's most powerful and influential people. Now, I wanted to know how does someone go from, as Joe always says, being a dead broke carpet cleaner, living on credit cards, to having literally the most valuable network of anyone I've ever met. And there are heads of state who have a less impressive and less valuable network than Joe Polish. I wanted to understand not just how he did it, but what are the methodologies, what are the techniques, what are the skills that we can learn from Joe's journey and his rise. And I think you guys will not be disappointed. This episode delivers a ton of actionable, superhuman relationship building tips and tricks and strategies. And you'll get to know one of the more interesting people that I have met and had the pleasure to spend time with. We did record this episode in person at the Genius Network headquarters a few weeks ago. And so the audio quality is not what you would normally expect. It is worth powering through. And I want to give a big shout out to Rakeem for figuring out a way for us to record this in reasonably high quality, despite all the challenges and constraints and short notice. So without any further ado, let me present to you my super friend, Joe Polish. Joe, welcome. I'm so glad. It took 6 months for us both to have the time to do this, but I'm really glad to finally introduce you to my audience because I feel like every guest, every week, I read out on the air. And by the way, thanks to Joe Polish for introducing us. Welcome.
Well, great to be here. So thank you.
Awesome. So for those of you who don't know, I've been in Joe's high-level mastermind genius network, and I've just been amazed. Every week we talk, Joe, about a superhuman skill, and you have a very clear superhuman skill, and you know what it is. And it is you are able to build relationships with the smartest, most powerful, most important people and connect people. And I think you probably have the most valuable network in the world. And so I just want to explore in this whole episode, understanding how you build relationships, how your career trajectory is literally an example, a case study of what the power of relationships is. And I'm really looking forward to getting into it.
Yeah. Life is about relationships. I mean, you hear the term that time is money, but I've never, had an alarm clock go off or my or phone or whatever sort of device that you would have an alarm and sitting next to it is a bunch of, money. So time could be money, but relationships are money. Every bit of money, every bit of progress in life comes through the connections that you actually make with other people. So the question is, how do you spend your time, your money, and your energy and your attention on the right things that are going to give you the highest leverage, give you the most joy, and how do you set that up?
Absolutely. So I want to go back because as I got to know you, and I was a big fan of your podcast before I got to know you, and there's one thing that I realized I didn't know. So I know the origin story, right? You were, to quote you, a dead broke carpet cleaner living off credit cards. And I know the now, you are first name basis with Tony Robbins and with Richard Branson and with Tim Ferriss and all these folks, many of whom you helped along the way in their career. Tell me that in between, right? What happened to help you go from A to B?
So here's the thing. I always used to read a lot of books and a lot of courses, and I'd try to figure out how to get better at doing business. And I had a lot of pain and a lot of angst in my life. And this is going to sound absolutely bizarre and maybe make no sense, but I was a drug addict at one point in my life. I was a real bad drug addict. Between the ages of 16 to 18, I started smoking pot, then I started snorting speed and snorting cocaine, and then I started freebasing cocaine, and I became a really bad coke addict. And at my worst state, when I was 18 years old, I weighed 105 pounds. And so, now one of the things I do is I have platforms that help people that struggle with addiction to, find the best forms of treatment that have efficacy and trauma and things like that. I've always had this enormous empathy for wanting to help other people and wanting to help myself. And so the way that I ended up connecting, and a lot of people consider me, this great connector. And that's what people refer to me that know me a lot as, although I don't run around and call myself a connector. And I think a lot of it is because I was so disconnected early on in life. I was incredibly disconnected. I was a shy, introverted kid. My mother died when I was 4. I was sexually, I was raped basically when I was, a child. And I had enormous fear. And, I was just scared and I was shy and I didn't know how to interact with people. I was afraid. And I would numb myself with drugs or through behaviors and just try to escape because I never felt good in my own skin. And I know what it feels like to feel really uncomfortable and just not okay with being alive and wanting to disappear. And I also know what it feels like to feel that someone cares about you and someone, will show up and want to be helpful and want to be useful. So my whole thing is, how can I become really useful and helpful to other people and in a way to where I feel acknowledged, I feel good, and in a way to where people want to do things to be useful for me, not because I've tricked them or done anything, just because I've added value to their life. And if I just operate and run a business that way, and if I interact with people that way, and, if you're just kind to people, everyone, someone opens the door for you, say thank you, don't be a jerk, that I can go far. And this doesn't seem like any profound sort of thing to me. It just seems like an operating system that everyone can follow. But over the years, I realized most people actually don't think about it that much. Right. And when I say most people, I mean, a lot of people are very conscientious, probably way more conscientious than I am on certain things. But I've built a whole business around just wanting to connect people with capabilities, with resources, and to reduce human suffering. So all of my stuff related to marketing and stuff is I have this belief that all human beings have some area of their life where they're really and it's causing them a lot of pain, and they're having to fight silent battles, and they build their businesses and they build their images and they do all this stuff, but there's this thing inside them that just hurts.
Yeah.
And if someone can show up and bring a little bit of sunshine into that darkness or put a smile on their face, even very successful people where they're just, a lot of really wealthy, successful people that do create value there. I mean, there's a lot of wealthy, successful people that are jerks, and there's a lot of poor, broke people that are jerks. I mean, there's jerks and there's all kinds of different levels of people. They don't get the really successful ones. What people don't realize is there's a lot of that's driven by pain. A lot of that's driven by angst. And, no one really feels sorry for the rich guy or gal with a beautiful house on the beach and all that. But if they got into their lives and they actually saw where some of those ghosts, some of those obstacles came from, they might have a different way to think about that person's life. And there's so much jealousy and there's so much envy that exists in the world. And if you can walk through the world and just know that every person, no matter who they are, their current level of consciousness is allowing them to do what it is they do, you can build rapport with them much easier.
Right.
How do you help someone if you kind of resent them? How do you help yourself if you kind of resent yourself? How well do you do with anything if you're, connected or disconnected from it? And I mean, like you, Jonathan, is, being such a great person at developing courses and training people and learning. I mean, you're just helping people become more capable. And the original definition of an entrepreneur, as John Baptiste Say, in 1804 was the first recorded use of the term entrepreneur. And he says an entrepreneur is an individual that takes resources from a lower yield to a higher yield, basically a lower level of, capability to a higher level of capability. And so whenever you can make something better, then that's entrepreneurial. And so whenever your life and your business is helping people become better, then you can actually get paid very well for that. People will appreciate you. People will refer you. People will utilize you. And so the more that you can make yourself more useful, you're going to meet a lot more people. And this doesn't just apply to business. This applies to parenting. This applies to dating.
Right.
This applies to every aspect of life. I mean, in a lot of ways, I just kind of think of, Dale Carnegie's, wonderful book,
Friends.
How to Win Friends and Influence
It's my
People.
favorite book of all time.
It's a great book. It's
Absolutely.
a fantastic book.
So from the beginning, when you started out as a carpet cleaner, it was all about relationships for you. And you built relationships, obviously. I mean, you tell the stories now about knowing Gary Halbert, about knowing Dan Kennedy. You built these relationships that allowed you to acquire knowledge. And very quickly you became, one of the most successful people in your industry. Tell me more about that.
Let me say this, because it did happen relatively quickly, but it wasn't without a lot of effort. What I learned that having the best attitude in the world is no better than having the worst attitude when it comes to making money, meaning there's no relationship between being good and getting paid. I was a very caring, conscientious person when I was broke, just as much as I would like to think I am now that I've had what some people would consider some levels of business success.
I'd say you are.
Now, all of that being said, it wasn't until I actually learned the application of direct response marketing that I ever started making any money.
Right.
Because there's a huge relationship between being a good marketer and getting paid, because you can be hardworking, you can be caring, you can be a really just like the most amazing person in the world and be dead ass broke. If you cannot persuade other people to buy your stuff. And so the number one job of the entrepreneur is go and get a check. In the very beginning, the only thing that's going to fuel this vehicle called entrepreneurship is money. And so you need to go out and get the money. And that comes from the ability to sell people, which is influence, and to be a good marketer, which is storytelling. Right. So if you're more influential, you're going to persuade more people. If you tell a better story, you're going to enroll people. So when I started studying how do you use words, because you can use words to make people laugh, you can use words to make people cry, you can repel people, you can attract people. So the languaging and everything that you say and how you say it, just the study and even the focus on like, I've got something I want to sell. How do I put it in front of someone who is interested in buying it? How do I find someone that has a problem that they're looking for a solution for, and how can I show up with it? And what I did, because I mean, in the time that we have, there's no way I'm going to teach anyone how to be an amazing marketer. What I can share with someone, though, is the number one obstacle that people have with doing well with marketing and building their business is they undervalue the importance of it. They place marketing as if any other line item.
Right.
It's like marketing is this. So you can be an expert or a marketer. You can be both. But the people that have trouble with not making money that are really smart is they got their expert hat on and they have some negative view of marketing because everyone has been exploited by some sort of high pressure, manipulative, misleading bullshit artist. And they all throw that under the umbrella of marketing. But every great movement, every wonderful human that's ever done anything amazing in the world used the ability to persuade, used the ability to influence, and had some sort of, attraction. So if you want to attract more money, attract better clients, attract better people, you have to make yourself more attractive. You have to be more desirable. As David Ogilvy said, you cannot bore people into buying.
Right.
You have to, you literally have to. So I really started studying a lot about marketing because I went about $30,000 in debt, dead broke carpet cleaner, living off credit cards. It's a great story. It's a great line, but it's true. I'm really what most people would consider a rags to riches story.
Right.
Not consider it. I am. Like, I'm a convert of my own system. And so I never thought I would run Genius Network, now the highest level marketing group in the world. I never thought I'd be doing what it is I do today, but it all was a byproduct of that. I had a problem. I was struggling. I was good at the business, but I was not good at selling the thing.
Right.
And I started with carpet cleaning. I had to figure out how to successfully sell something that nobody wants to buy. And when you're forced to actually have to figure out how to persuade people to buy something that most people don't even want, then it actually makes you pretty good.
Oh, I'm sure.
At marketing. So anyone that says, well, I can't learn from your marketing strategies, well, of course you could.
And I've seen you on your podcast, flip through a phone book and go, I can literally apply this to any business in the world. The part that I don't get is, okay, great. You told me recently today that within 3 years you were teaching this to every carpet cleaner. You found God, right? And you discovered this skill, which you always say marketing is applied psychology. You figured out how to use psychology. Yeah. Now you're on the cover of the most popular magazine in the world. But
for that industry, yeah.
Exactly. You're king of the carpet cleaning world. Fast forward a couple of years, you're hanging out with Richard Branson. And so I don't understand how you made that transition in your life to say, you know what, I can take these skills and break out, and shave my hair and become Joe freaking Polish.
Okay, well, let me try to reverse engineer it and explain in a way. We talked about this because we've been hanging out for the last few days since Genius Network. About 80 to 90% of all of the things that we all do is teachable to other people, I think, to a certain degree. And about, 10% or so, it could be 1% to 20% is magic. There's this stuff that we do that it would be really hard to teach other people. So the parts of me, let's take a guy like my friend Gary Vaynerchuk, right? He's out there, motivating and encouraging people to hustle and stuff like that. The truth is, Gary has a lot of the Gary magic. People can
energy,
they're just not going to do it quite like he does, but there's a lot of stuff that he teaches that you could, right? And if you can get someone into a motivated state to take action, that's probably going to benefit them. So all the nuances of what it is that I do and how I do it, some of that maybe, can't be taught, but what certainly could be taught is that if you start putting your antennas up for when someone has a problem and they don't know how to solve the problem, and you can connect them with a book or a course or a product or a service or a methodology or a system that will either fix that problem or alleviate it, and you're the one that shows up with it and provides it to them, even if it's for free, you're going to build reciprocity. Yeah. More than anything, I believe life gives to the giver and takes from the taker. I don't like people that give things with an agenda that's obvious. Meaning, when I say agenda, look, I want people to like me. Yes, I would like people to give me money and buy my stuff and join my groups and validate me and think I'm a nice person. All of that's, fine and dandy. However, I do not expect anyone to give me anything unless I've created value first. I don't have an entitlement attitude, and I never did. Okay. Maybe I've had stages where I'm pissed off or I'm feeling really hungry or whatever, and I just want something because I want it. However, I don't go out and interact with people like, I'm going to do something for you and, I'm going to pin you down and make you want to do it. What I do is I just literally blanket people with value that to where they naturally wow.
And I can attest to that.
Yeah.
And you do it oftentimes at the expense of yourself.
Right.
You will drive yourself into the ground to give and show love for the people you appreciate.
Which is a recent awareness of me that's literally because of my girlfriend, who has shown me in way this blind spot I had, that I love being a giver, but there are boundaries, because there's that famous Zig Ziglar quote, and it's funny, Zig, because I'm going to have Zig Ziglar at my event this year, although he passed away via hologram. But we're going to bring him up on stage with Kevin Harrington via hologram. And Zig Ziglar has this famous line, which is, you can have anything you want in life, get anything you want in life, if you help enough other people get what they want. And that's true for the most part. However, you can misutilize that and you can help a lot of other people get what they want that won't do a damn thing for you. So part of it is be nice, be generous, be grateful, be useful, be helpful to people. But at the same time, if you notice they're just using you, then stop.
Right.
Don't be codependent with people. So the question is, how did you actually do it? Well, here's how I did it. Education-based marketing. One of the most effective ways that I learned how to influence and persuade people is not just teach them how to make a buying decision or how to get to where they want to go, but it's not the things that people know. It's all the things that people don't know that they don't know.
Right.
That if you're the one that shows up and helps bring clarity to the confusion that exists in people's lives, then you have an opportunity to do something. Wherever there's anxiety, there's opportunity, which is something my buddy Richard Rossi says. And so if you look for anxieties that people are having and you can lessen or eliminate that pain, then you have an opportunity. There's a magic moment that happens there. Yeah. So I'm always, if I'm out at dinner and I want to bust on the server in a nice way, just to make them laugh, you've created value. I mean, you can get people to do all kinds of things for you by doing things for them. There's a lot of books on how to get people to do anything you want them to do, or how to persuade people that don't want to be persuaded and all that sort of stuff. And you can manipulate people. I mean, you can, study everything about NLP and all kinds of different ways to frame and all kinds of different ways to model different people. And you can do that from like an evil mindset of like, let me just figure out how to work people like puppets, or you can just show up and be really damn useful
and feel good about it.
Yeah, feel real good and make other people feel really, and you know what? They will give you money. Yeah. So like, let's take carpet cleaning as an example. Like the term can and clone yourself, which I first learned from Gary Halbert. So you could be the best salesperson on the planet, but you're limited by the clock. You can only talk to so many people in an 8-hour day. But with the right sales letter, the right video, the right podcast, the right course, as you teach, you can talk to 10 people, 100 people, 1,000 people. So figure out how to take them. Like if you fish with a fishing pole, you can catch one fish at a time. If you fish with a net, you can catch maybe hundreds or thousands. So figure out what are the stupid human tricks that you have? What are your strengths? And develop those things and think of it as marketing. Because if you spend your life trying to get really good at what you're weak at the end of your life, you have a lot of really strong weaknesses. So what are the things that you actually are really strong at that you can develop and you can leverage? Because the two words, and you're an expert at teaching this to people, Jonathan, is productivity, which is a maximum results, least amount of time, and leverage, which is maximum results, least amount of effort. So all of your behaviors that are going to help you have more leverage through this, what relationships are going to give you more leverage? What things can you learn that are going to give you the most leverage? What are the activities that are going to make you more productive, are going to make your clients more productive, make your life more productive? And if you just focus on leverage and productivity applied to the area that needs solved, you're simply going to be better. And if someone was to take what you teach, memory, super learning, productivity, and they think of it as the marketer's hat, like, okay, how can I do this so I can apply productivity to selling, to marketing, to helping my clients? Right. Then all of a sudden you've taken something that you may want to just have more time to sleep or spend more time with your kids or, spend less time on email. And all of a sudden you're now getting more out of it because you're like, well, shit, how do we actually see? Because direct response marketing is time management marketing. It's what I now call ELF. Right. ELF marketing. As soon as I learned
easy,
that I could. Easy,
lucrative, and fun.
Yeah, you can have
audience.
Easy, lucrative, and fun is ELF. And half, you can have a half business, which is hard, annoying, lame, and frustrating, or hard, annoying, lucrative, and frustrating. And if you actually take a look at everything in your life and your business that's not ELF, and you're like, how do I apply leverage? How do I apply productivity? And how do I make this more ELF? Then all of a sudden everything changes. And so your mindset starts filtering different people, different situations, and different activities. And most of the things that people are really actually good at, they feel guilty about doing them. And they tend to put a lot of time and effort into stuff that they suck at or that they think they need. It's so effortless that, oh God, I can't do this because that's too easy. Let me figure out how to grind it out. And they're all in the discipline and stuff. And look, there's a lot of value in discipline. I mean, especially in the beginning. Rarely is a business elf in the very beginning. You're going to have some level of marketing stamina, which is why, and we both believe this, eating and sleep and meditation and exercise, those are actually probably more important than figuring out how to, run a company in the beginning, because if you have to be a fit animal, think of yourself as an animal. You are an animal in survival of the fittest. The more fit you are, the more capable you are of doing well in the jungle. Right. And even if you use this as a metaphor and just a thing, like if you wake up at 60% and you're immediately putting sugar or tons of caffeine in your system or smoking cigarettes or, watching porn or drinking alcohol. And this ain't a moral thing. I'm saying like the story of, does this make the boat go faster? And you're engaged in things right from the morning starts. You already wake up tired because you didn't get enough sleep.
And then compromise yourself.
Yeah. And you're already waking up at 60%. Well, what's going to get you to 70? What's going to get you to 80? If you show up as close as you can to 100% or maybe 110% because you've set up, like if everyone got a blank sheet of paper, not electronically, pen and paper, draw a line down the middle of it. On the left-hand side up at the top, you put setup. On the right-hand side, you put conditions. And you think of what are the conditions that I want in my life? A successful business, better clients, more money, better relationship, more sleep, a home that I love, an environment that I love, all of these things that you would consider successful. And who the hell am I to tell anyone what success is? I mean, I see the world through my eyes. Anyone listening to this, their own definition of success, screw what your parents told you should do, as who you are, left to your own devices. Who are you and what do you consider enjoyable? What do you consider elf? What do you consider successful? And those is everything on the right-hand page. Those are the conditions that you want in your life. On the left-hand side is the setup. In order to get to the conditions we want, we all need a certain type of setup. And so you ask yourself, what needs solved? What's one problem that if I solve this one problem will solve 100 other problems? Like a lot of people are really struggling in their businesses because they haven't solved one problem. And a lot of times it's just marketing. I don't have a sales letter or an offer that is getting people to respond. There's a lot of fish out there. Other people are in the same business as me, but they're doing well and I'm not. What are they fishing with? Where are they fishing? What are they doing? And so, don't waste time with people that are dispensing advice on how to do stuff that they themselves have not done.
Yeah.
Hang around with winners. Winners find ways to win and losers find ways to lose. And unlearning is more important than learning. And you know that. And so in a lot of ways, we both kind of trick people. And what I mean by trick people is I sell people what they want. I try to give them what they need. Most people that come into Genius Network, they want to make more money. They want to get more clients. And then they come in and they hear me talking about addiction. They hear me talking about like the stresses in their life. They hear me talking
free
about
days and family time. Yeah.
Yeah. But if you can build a better entrepreneur, then when you give them the marketing strategy, then when you give them all of the different strategies, they kick ass with it because they're no longer at 40% or 30%, they're at 80%.
Yeah.
And if you can get them there, then they interact with it better anyway.
It's like when I was young, one of my favorite quotes of all times was Archimedes, who discovered the principle of leverage. And he said, give me but a firm place to stand at a large enough lever and I'll move the earth. And when I was young, I thought all about that firm enough, long enough lever, which is more skills, more degrees, more techniques, more strategies, maybe even more people in my network. But as I age, I realized the real magic of that is you need a firm enough place to stand. Otherwise, the lever will just bury you, pound you into the ground.
Right.
And so it's all about firming up your health, mental and physical, so that you can then use the leverage.
Yeah.
All right. At this point, I want to pause and take a moment to thank our sponsor, Four Sigmatic, who is making it easy for everyday people to unlock the incredible health benefits of mushrooms. I originally learned about Four Sigmatic when I met their founder at a conference in 2015, and I have been pretty much obsessed with their products ever since. Personally, I use their reishi mushroom tea most nights for an all-natural sleep aid. I carry their chaga immunity blend anytime I travel. And I've also pretty much switched out my usual coffee or yerba mate for their unbelievably awesome mushroom coffee, either in ground or in instant form. Now, what I love about the mushroom coffee is that it combines chaga for immune support with lion's mane for intense focus. And because of that, I actually find it to be more effective than most nootropics or stimulants, including Ritalin, despite having only 40 milligrams of caffeine. It's honestly insane. If you haven't tried out their products, I strongly recommend you do so. And to encourage you to give them a try, we've actually teamed up with Four Sigmatic to bring you an incredible 15% discount. To take advantage of that, just visit foursigmatic.com/superhuman today. All right, back to the show. I want to ask you, how many relationships do you maintain?
Well, what's it called? Dunbar's Law or whatever?
I was just going to ask you about Dunbar's Law.
Like 150 people. I think I violate that.
Because, you do, and I want to know how.
That's one thing I don't. Either I'm extraordinarily codependent and neurotic, which is, I'm certainly that. I mean, I have a friend who actually was the founder of Codependence Anonymous. It built around, the 12 steps of recovery. He created Coda. So I certainly have done a lot of work on codependency. So I say that sort of jokingly, but also, I have this incessant need to want to try to be helpful to people. So I heard early on in my career, the quote, be nice to the people you meet on the way up. They're the same people you meet on the way down. So I try to stay in touch with a lot of people that were the first dominoes. To me, I have the URL, thefirstdomino.com, because I try to think of who are the people that have been dominoes in my life. And, if you went out on a great date with someone, going back to when you're single, and you go on a great date, and you just had an awesome time. You really clicked. You had great rapport. You wouldn't say to the date at the end when you give her a kiss on the cheek or whatever. I'll try to keep this PG rated. I had a wonderful time. It was awesome. I'll call you in 6 months. I mean, you would never go out again, right? Now, that's how most people deal with their marketing, but that's in a lot of ways how most people deal with their relationships. And I've never wanted to be like, I used to own a pickup truck when I was in high school. And after I wrecked my first car, which was a 1973 Chevy Nova, that's a whole nother story, but that was funny. And I would have some relationships, some friends that only time I would hear from them is when they needed to move. So they wanted to borrow my truck, right? Oh, can you come over and help me move a couch or some shit like that? And there's a lot of people like the only time you hear from them is when they need something. And then you help them and then you don't hear from them. So I have this sort of whole thing about just stay in touch with the cool people in your life. Who are the relationships that you want to nurture? And just like any sort of farm, it requires consistency. So for me, I literally have walls that have the names of, like Dan Sullivan, who's a dear friend of mine. He's coached more successful entrepreneurs than anyone in the world. He's the founder of Strategic Coach, and we do, the 10X Talk podcast together. And so Dan, other than his wife, I'm his best friend. And so Dan has this thing called a top 20 club and the farm club. So who are the top 20 people that in the next 90 days are the most important relationships in your life? And you have your top 20 club. And then there's the farm club, which are beyond 90 days. Well, my top 20 club's really about a top 500 club. Well, not quite that much in 90 days, but I stay in touch with them. So every time it's someone's birthday, if someone's a friend of mine on Facebook, they get a happy birthday message with me with some famous freaking person every year. It first started with me with Richard Branson wishing him a happy birthday. And people can see this online if they want to just model it. Type in Joe Polish happy birthday. You'll see me with, Tony Robbins and Arianna Huffington and JP Sears and Peter Diamandis and Damon John from Shark Tank and, all these famous people that so I drip on people continuously. Even if I'm not in touch with them, we have a whole sequence of every client we have a built-in way of wishing all of them happy birthday. So we automate a lot of touch points on things. Wow. I'm a huge believer in physical things. Like you want to change your life and relationships, like every day, say 5 days a week, figure out a way to send 10 postcards handwritten, or, and they could be typed if you want to automate it, make it real, but if you literally did that, if someone wants to develop a much deeper network, just think of people who are clients, who are friends, who are relationships that just something physical, you physically mail them a card. It would change your life. Anyone that does this.
I started doing it because of you, and it's started changing my life.
It does. Like every single person that's listening to this, even if they did one a day, one a day, that would totally
it'll cost you 37 cents. Unless you live in Israel, then it'll cost you $2.50.
Yeah. Well, let's say it costs you $5. Who gives a shit? Right. Because what's going to happen in a year's time, it's going to, it's just, you've built that rapport. So what I do is I just constantly visually on the wall have ways to remind myself of certain people.
So you got a whole whiteboard with your top people.
Yeah. Brilliant. I mean, it's more like a poster board, and I have it in different places. I have it electronically. And there's no beautiful system. I mean, it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be a trigger. And do I miss a lot of people? Do I forget about a lot? Of course. Of course, but I keep up with a lot of people too. Incredible. And I send them gifts. I mean, during the holidays, man, send stuff to people. And I like doing that because, one of my love languages is, acts of service and gifts and stuff. And so Gary Chapman, who wrote the 5 Love Languages, I met him a few years ago and I was having a conversation with him, and he said to me, which I always found to be incredibly interesting. He goes, if you want to know what someone's love language is, listen to what they complain about. So if you have a partner that's constantly complaining about something, or an employee or a boss, you work for someone, you teach people how to do courses, right? And you have a whole course on how to do courses, which everyone that's listening to this, if they've not bought your course on how to do courses, they should buy it. If you work for someone or you want to impress the hell out of someone you want to know, do a course for them on how if you're an employee and your boss is running around complaining about inventory or complaining about follow-up or complaining about conversions or complaining about complaints that they get, and you did a whole course, and it could be a short one, it could be 45 minutes or it could be 6 hours, but you did a whole course for everyone within the company on how to alleviate that problem, and you showed up with a boss. You know what that boss would do? He probably would not only give you a raise, but you have just made yourself so damn valuable to that individual. So how do you make yourself more valuable to that? So a lot of it is just how useful can you be? And so when I'm, thinking about all of the people in my life, I want to make them laugh, because you can gauge the value of most relationships by how often they laugh together.
Right.
You want to be better at rapport building? Go sign up for an improv class. Sign up for clown school. Start watching comedy shows and figure out life is hard for some people. People are fighting silent battles. Things are seldom as bleak as they seem when they're going well, and they're seldom as bad as they seem when they're going wrong. Okay, so lighten up, you'll live longer. That's what my friend Dave Kekich, who's paralyzed from the chest down for half his life, wrote in one of his Kekich credos. And so figure out how to laugh more frequently. There's been a lot of research, and it's one of the things that I'm exploring right now, that there's research that is showing that there's more value to human happiness with laughter than there is with gratitude. So you have all these people running around doing gratitude journals and stuff like that, which is great. I mean, because the two areas that are really valuable to protect as an entrepreneur is your confidence, because it's hard to do anything well without a certain level of confidence. Yeah. Because, courage is hard. Confidence is easy. But until you get confidence, you're going to have to operate out of courage, right? So confidence, protect your confidence and protect your gratitude, because you can have all the money, all the relationships in the world, but if you don't have any appreciation for it, then using the economic term, it depreciates. It doesn't appreciate. So gratitude and confidence are critical, but laugh your ass off all the time and become more funny to people. Right. And so, how do you bring some joy to, because people are living silent battles a lot, and silent battles are the hardest battles to fight. And one of the ways that I build rapport is that I know that I'm as sick as my secrets. I talk openly about being an addict. I talk openly about the crazy shit that I've done in addiction that has caused me enormous shame. I talk about how I've had to work through the trauma, because I believe addiction is a response to trauma. And I believe that, the opposite of addiction is connection. And so it's hard to connect with others if you're not connected with yourself. So you're either in communication with somebody or you're trying to escape. When you go to a cocktail party or you go to an event, observe people talking, and they're either in communication or they're trying to escape. They're trying to get around. They're looking over their shoulder. And if you're with people that are always trying to escape from you, it's either the vibe that you're giving off, or they're not perceiving you as valuable, or you're simply not valuable. Or I've had to sit down with people that come across as sleazy, come across as manipulative, and I've had to have conversations with them. Most of the time they don't get it. Most of the time, but I still have the belief that, a tiger can change their stripes, because I've seen it happen with people that struggle with addiction. But I'll sit them down and be like, you are giving off of all I'm trying to do is take from you vibe. You've got to take her vibe. You've got to take her energy. And if you want to be a giver, quit trying to push so much. The hungriest never get fed.
Right.
And if you want more selection in your life, be more selective. Have standards for how you operate. If you lay down with dogs, you wake up with fleas. There's no such thing as a good business deal with a bad partner. Align yourself with people that are aligned with you. Have standards, have a value system. Don't try to adopt someone else's value system because you read the great book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Doesn't necessarily mean you have to adopt Stephen Covey's exact habits of being, or you got all inspired because you read the 4-Hour Work Week and you're trying to be a mini Tim Ferriss. I mean, adopt your own freaking value system and live into that. And real human happiness comes from not consuming others' values, but by producing your own. And when you produce your own value system, you're not only happier, but you're more impactful and you become your own person. And a lot of people are very uncomfortable in their own skin because they're always trying to model who they see on social media or what celebrity or what. Mm-hmm. And all of these people, all of them have an area of their life where they're broken. And a lot of it is just, it's just fake. It's like, what's that saying that my Brie, her brand name is the Betty Rocker. She teaches like great fitness videos, and she just put out a thing on Instagram that said, the grass is greener on the other side because it's fake.
Totally. And I love that. And I love you're as sick as your secrets, because I've discovered, especially as you get into a position of influence, as we have in our careers, more people look up to you and you can get that imposter syndrome because we all have skeletons in our closets, and even the people that we look up to have skeletons. And you know this better than everyone because you helped a lot of very famous people with their addiction and recovery. And, for me, it's like people ask me about my morning routine. I'm like, my morning routine is a disaster. And so, and that's my goal that I want to be working on with folks in Genius Network like Hal Elrod and stuff like that.
Which we wrote a book together called The Miracle Morning for Addiction Recovery.
Exactly. And so, and we all have these things. And the question is, do you hide it or do you overcome it and then turn around and teach it? And I've always tried to do the latter, which is overcome it, figure out how I overcame it in a way that, the 5 other ways that I tried didn't work. I teach speed reading because the 3 ways that I learned before didn't work.
Let me speak to that. So here's my thoughts on that too, because it took me a long time. I could talk about drugs and alcohol, but it was a long time before I could talk about sexual addiction, because sexual addiction is an intimacy disorder. And my favorite definition of intimacy is a mutual exploration of a shared safe place. Abuse is anything that takes away the safe place, and addictions are what we do to make ourselves feel good when we don't have a safe place. And so when you are going into self-destruction, or you're doing something like, you have a double life of, hiring escorts or watching internet porn or binging and purging, which is, with food, or you have a gambling addiction or a gaming addiction or a workaholic addiction where you don't feel good if you're not working because workaholism is a respectable addiction, or you're numbing yourself with drugs and alcohol. There's a lot of shame. There's guilt, which is guilt is like, I feel bad. Shame is I am bad. And when you're in secrecy, it's like mold. It thrives in darkness. And so there's a tendency to isolate and to not tell anyone. And then you have this double life. And people that lead really great double lives are fascinating because they're destroying their lives, but they're able to not have anyone know it. Right? They're able to hide it. And so when it comes to being as sick as your secrets, what I realize is when that which seems most private, like no one else knows what I'm feeling, no one else understands its pain, no one understands the shame, that which is actually most private is most public. You'd be surprised how many other people that are experiencing or feeling something similar, but you would never know that because you never talk about it. Yeah. And you don't have a circle of people you could go to that talk about it.
Yeah. And it's most valuable. It's the most valuable thing. I mean,
it's where freedom lies.
The moment where a friend of yours, Tim Ferriss, shared, he has a past where he's contemplated suicide many, many times. Yeah. And the moment he shared that, statistically, as you know, in Tony's seminar, statistically in a room of 2,000 people, 12 of them are contemplating suicide. Right. And, Tony has talked a lot about that and can save those 12 people. And Tim had thousands of people reach out and go, you know what? To see that you share this with me. And so I've done a lot of that. I publicly didn't want to talk for a long time about the fact that I was addicted to Ritalin, and I had been prescribed it and ended up addicted to it. Yeah. Couldn't get out of bed without it. And sharing that not only gave me, as you said, like shining light on the mold, but also has helped a lot of people who reach out to me and say, you know, I also found myself, now I'm out of school, I don't need this crap. How do I get off of it?
Well, okay. Well, let me take what you just said there, which is great. And I honor you very much for doing that. And the more people that are publicly able to go out and do it, the better. There's a difference between secrecy and privacy. When you just go out and regurgitate every crazy thing on a Facebook Live when you're inebriated, or when you just happen to hype yourself up and now I'm just going to disclose stuff. I mean, in the beginning, you can actually disclose things to people that will use it against you. So it's kind of like one of the 12 steps is make amends except when to do so would injure you or others, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't want to disclose stuff that's just for the sake it's going to hurt somebody, or act like you're trying to say you're sorry or you apologize when in reality you're just trying to hurt people and cleanse yourself. So you want to get to a place to where, you know, knowing the difference between secrecy and privacy, you don't owe the world like that you have to like make a, you know, some public sort of confession. I got to the point where after I did enough recovery and I worked enough where I realized, you know, if I actually start sharing this, other people will be able to resonate with it. And sure enough, I mean, it was nerve wracking when I first, you know, disclosed some of the stuff. But when I started having people come up to me and saying, thank you for sharing that, I've experiencing the same thing. And now I'm in this sort of position with Genius Recovery and everything where, you know, it's now become, you know, I never expected it to be. But to go to your thing about, you know, when you're able to say something and it's able to help others, it's very similar to if you go in and you're of service to someone that is in a worse position than you.
Right.
The interesting thing about volunteering, as an example, or 12-step groups, is the way that it works is you have people that have been through the trenches, they've been through pain, and they're going and they're helping someone else. And if someone is like depressed or they're really anxious or they're really lonely, and as hard as it is to muster any energy or enthusiasm to get out of those places, if you could go volunteer at a nursing home, right, or an animal shelter or a homeless shelter or a recovery clinic or a burn clinic, any sort of disaster relief, it is amazing how much counterintuitively that will help your attitude. I encourage people all the time, if nothing else is seeming to work, right, go freaking help someone who's more than you are.
Totally. And it has happened to me many, many times where, for example, you know, I told you we've had ups and downs in our business, and I feel better in the room at Genius Network talking to someone who hasn't figured out the Facebook ads thing at all and just being like, well, here's what we learned. And, you know, this right now, this is costing us 3 times what it's supposed to cost us. And you feel so much better because it's like, well, first off, you get that huge dopamine rush of helping another human being. Right. But you also get this forced perspective of like, look how far you've come. Right. Could be worse. You could be back where they are. And not to ever compare yourself to someone else, but you could be back where you were when you were them. Yes. Right. And it's like talking to folks this week about online courses. Mm-hmm. And I had so many people come up to me and go, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know where to begin. And I don't know. And I remember I was in New York 4 years ago thinking to myself, how the hell am I going to, I've built 1 or 2, but how am I going to build one that is going to be on my website? Because I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to market that. Right. Fortunately, I discovered I love marketing. But, I remember that, holy shit, I'm so overwhelmed. And then you have this sigh of relief, like, oh, I'm very grateful to be where I am, even though where I am isn't where I was, 6 months ago. Well, okay, let's take this as an example too, because one thing, and I have a tendency, because I happen to have built a business around being able to walk into a room and finding out everything that's wrong, not everything that's right. That's entrepreneurs. Right. So part of it is like, and most entrepreneurs live with the highest levels of dissatisfaction. So part of it is, what I learned from Dan Sullivan is he has a thing called the gap conversation, avoiding the gap. And the way that he just defines the gap, because there's some people that use the gap as a positive thing. In this particular case, he talks about the horizon. If you look out at the horizon, you can't ever go and touch the horizon, right? You can't go and hold it. You can go towards it. You can look at it, but it's a mental construct. And so the human happiness really boils down to how you measure. So if you measure against the ideal, people are like, live to your full potential, your ideal life. Well, first off, no one's ever going to live to their full potential. It's a fantasy. Yeah, you should pursue your potential. Yeah, we should look at reaching the potential. Yeah, I understand the semantics, but you're not going to live the ideal life. And some people, maybe they're super contented, but those people annoy me because I don't like lifestyle entrepreneurs.
Right. I like achievement entrepreneurs.
Right.
And that's not to say you can't have an amazing lifestyle and also achieve. But I like people that are growth oriented. I mean, those are the ones that excite me because their future is always bigger than their past, right? Not like, oh, I'm here and I'm contented and I want to maintain it. You bore the shit out of me. That's great. Maybe there's a time in your life when that's the case. But, for the most part, I like people that are achievers. I like people that want to do stuff. But what I don't want is I don't want achievers to suffer, right? So the mental construct is like, if you say, well, shit, I'm not where I want to be, and I'm not measuring up to where I want to be, you're going to be unhappy. But if you measure against where was I and look how far I've gone, even if you've dipped back, then it's all how you measure. Human happiness is a measuring stick. It's are you measuring against the future of where you're not at and where you wish you were? You're not, the weight you want to be, the body you want to be, the relationship you want to be, the income you want to be, the car you want to drive, the house you want to live in, your mental state, whatever. If you're constantly measuring about, I'm not there yet, you're in inadequacy and lack. But if you're measuring against like, look where I've come from where I've been, you're going to be a lot happier. And it's simply measuring. It's all how you measure. And so if you can help other people get out of the gap, see how to sell people is you can say, okay, I've got something that's going to fix you. So let me tell you everything that's wrong with you and how to fix it. And you know what's going to happen? If you're right and you can help them fix it, you'll get a lot of resistance and you'll get some buy-in and people will buy from you because you can fix their problem. But if you approach people and say, here's what's right with you and how to enhance it, you get almost zero resistance and you get more buy-in.
Right.
Because you're showing up, not beating them down. Like people are like, I need a coach that's going to kick me in the ass. Like, I don't want to kick you in the ass. I want to look at what you're already doing really well, acknowledge you for the shit that you showed up, you signed up for this course, you joined this program, you're trying to wake up and jog, even if you can't even run, but you're trying to walk, or if you can't do a single push-up, but you're at least trying to do one versus like, you lazy piece of shit, get off your ass. I mean, it's like, what are you going to want to live? Now, some people, honest to God, are motivated by having someone yell at them. I mean, back in the 900 number days, the 900 numbers other than sex that were making some of the most money were insult lines. People would literally call up and pay a per minute charge to have someone insult them.
No kidding.
I mean, we live with humans that love to be degraded, that want to get beaten up, that want someone to yell at them and, and whatever. But for the most part, that's not the game I want to play. Totally. I mean, I don't want to be yelling at myself.
And I went to a landmark forum you asked in Genius, and I told you, I raised my hand and said, I did about a third of it. Because I went to one day and I have a fundamental difference with the way I teach. My first words to a student are, it's not your fault. The way that you're learning isn't working and it's not your fault, right? And their first words are, look how you are. And over the next 3 days, we're going to completely, because it's all got to go. It's all garbage. Everything. The whole way that you act, the whole way you interact, it's all garbage. That's why you're here. That's why you're messed up. And I'm just not down with that. I'm all about, let's teach from a place of compassion.
Right. Yeah. And, and that's interesting too, because there are certain sort of things like, interventions have saved a lot of people's lives, but there's other ways through how you can get someone into recovery that is not so conflicting and not so like, let's all gang up. Now, I'm not saying in some situations, some people are so out of control that you must contain the ticking time bomb before they blow up. But the fact is, here's the thing, I guess I would say, deal with people at the level at which they respond. Right. Some people, you can be very nice and very sweet and you're not going to get response. Other people, but for the most part, don't ever compromise your value system. Don't ever try to, if someone simply is not aligned with you, you can spend a lot of time rowing the boat for someone more than they're rowing the boat themselves. But what's going to happen there is you're just going to spend a lot of your time working your ass off on someone else's behalf. And then they're going to blame you if they don't do it.
Right.
Literally some people that are irresponsible that you try to help, due to their irresponsibility, will blame you or like if someone buys one of your courses and says, this course doesn't work, and you really went back and say, what did you do? You'll find in most cases they did nothing because your stuff works. My stuff works. People don't go to the gym and join a gym and never show up at the gym. Don't get on the weight bench and lift the weights and then go back to the gym and say gyms don't work.
Right.
Well, of course they work. If you exercise, of course your course works if people use it. Of course my marketing works if they apply it.
Right.
But it's that sort of thing. So
totally.
Yeah.
So I want to do a whole course with you on relationship building. So I'm not going to go too deep into, because I know you have like a 9-step method.
Yeah, of a magic rapport formula.
If
people want to actually learn about how I really do, to go deep with it, because of course I was trying to, talk about several things here. Episode number 29 of ilovemarketing.com. It was done years ago, but literally the number one question people ask me is, how do you meet people like Richard Branson? How do you meet all these famous people?
Yeah, of course.
And I go through the whole 9-step magic rapport formula and I lay it out, but I'm happy to do an updated thing with you. And
we should do a course that actually gets people to apply it. If people are interested in that course, just go on superhuman.blog and leave a comment, or tag Joe or I on Twitter @JoePolish, @entrepreneur, because I think it'd be really, really cool. And I really see what you do as superhuman. Like, you probably have seen me do 50 numbers back and forth, and that's superhuman to you.
Totally.
To me, the way that you build relationships and also experiencing it in the second person, like, the first time I met you, you come up to me and you go, you're this and you've done that, and that's so cool, and I've been looking forward to meet you. And I'm like, holy shit, this guy knows who I am, first and foremost. I want to ask you about superhuman hacks, because first name basis Dave Asprey and Tim Ferriss and Tony Robbins and Ray Kurzweil, and all the top people in this space. What is your superhuman health routine?
For just health?
Yeah, what stuff has penetrated through kind of your busy schedule?
Consistency is more important than just doing a really great workout. In the same way that, eating one healthy meal once is not, is consistent. Second is, and a lot of this I take from the world of recovery. Anything you put ahead of your recovery, you're going to lose. If your number one thing is addiction, if you need to fix your health or improve your health or maintain your health, anything you put ahead of your health, you're going to lose. If you put sleep ahead of your health, you're going to lose health. If you put your business ahead of your health, you're going to get in poor physical shape. So if you don't take time out for it now, you're going to take time out for later. So to answer the question, first off, it has to be the number one priority. There's a proverb, which is, he or she who has their health has 1,000 dreams. He who does not have their health has only one. So, or you can call it goals. And
that's incredible.
The reason we're sitting here right now, and we can build businesses, and people listening to this can even listen to us right now. Think about this. Take it to this level. You're listening to me and Jonathan right now because you're probably not laid up in a hospital somewhere, incapable of being in so much pain you can't even focus.
Knock on wood.
So, if you have your health, you have all these dreams and aspirations. Don't lose it, because people that have lost it will give anything, money, relationships, everything away to get it back. So don't squander it. So take the understanding that what do you have, and move. The issues are in the tissues. Get to the core of the trauma that is causing you angst and anxiety and creating the energy system, the nervous system. So the things that I'm a big believer in is, how do you solve one problem that solves 1,000 problems? So what my health routine is I, on different stages, I've always done strength training, some sort of lifting weights, because even as you get older, you can do just cardio or stretching, but for the most part, you want to strengthen the muscles and the bones. So you want to have a strength training. Three things, stretching, and I love yoga. So I do yoga 2 to 3 days a week. I'll lift weights 4 or 5 days a week. I've been doing lately, almost for about 2 years now, Joe DeSena, who's the founder of Spartan Races.
He was on the show.
Yeah, he interviewed me, and I never even knew who the hell they were until they reached out to me.
Right.
And I'm like, why do you want to interview me? I don't run marathons or do crazy races like you guys do. He's like, because you're a Spartan. All the stuff that you've done. So when he showed up, I had a freaking cold that day. I just literally had a cold. And I've not had a cold since. He's like, let's do some burpees. I'm like, I'm wheezing right now. I can barely and he's like, no, we'll go slow. And I freaking did 61 burpees straight with this guy while I had a cold. I thought I was going to die. But for some reason, it triggered in my head how quickly that builds up your heartbeat. So almost daily, I do between 30 to 70 burpees a day.
That's great.
And I'll wake up in the morning. Sometimes I'll meditate first. I do TM meditation, transcendental meditation. Sometimes I'll do burpees before. Sometimes I'll do it after. For most people that meditate, it seems insane to do burpees before you would meditate. But frankly, it kicks you into gear. If I'm ever glopped in front of a computer for a long period of time, or I'm in a shitty mood, immediately jump down and do 5 to 10 burpees. Oh my God, it changes your state. So priming yourself, like my buddy Tony Robbins has his own method of priming. So I do burpees, I do yoga, and of course, sleep is critical.
Yeah.
There's so
and
much.
You eat really well, as I've seen.
Yeah, and I'm mostly like a grain-free sort of diet, even though I'm less militant about it. This month will be 2 years since I've had a single drop of caffeine. I went a year and 3 months with not any cane sugar, no sugar whatsoever.
And you drink no alcohol?
Rarely. I was never an alcoholic, but yeah, I mean, in 2014, I decided to do some experiment to go the entire year without a single drop of alcohol. And now I'm probably going to go the rest of my life with
me too.
Not really drinking, because when I say not really, like if someone's an alcoholic or they have any sort of thing, I mean, there is no a little bit. I mean, it's like you don't do it, right? So for me, I mean, the number one killer of people are sugar first, tobacco second, alcohol third, and then we get into the opiates. Those are the things. But, sugar is actually the gateway drug. So part of it is just eating very clean, eating as healthy as you can. If you're having trouble with your weight or your focus and you're eating out all the time, figure out how to either cook food yourself or hire a chef or have food done for you, because food and eating is one of the coping mechanisms. So, you're fueling, it's your body. It's your body. Your body's a temple. Unfortunately, some people's bodies are satanic temples, so they treat it like shit.
I love it. Joe, I know we're running out of time here and I got to go to the airport, but you're one of the only people I know who has a literal library organized by a professional librarian. You have something like 2,500 books in that room.
Yeah, in that one, there's 2,200. And then throughout the rest of the office, there's probably another, 1,500.
What are your top books of all time?
Oh, geez. God, that's a tough
Give me
one.
just a few.
It depends on the subject matter. When it comes to marketing, I mean, go back to the old school, Claude Hopkins, Scientific Advertising, the Gary Halbert letter, which he, How to Make Maximum Money in Minimum Time, which is a compilation of Gary's newsletters. When it comes to positioning, Winning Through Intimidation by Robert Ringer, which is not about how to intimidate people, but to how people not intimidate you. My book, which will be coming out next year, which is The Average Joe's Marketing
Make
book.
sure you guys check that out. We're going to put a link at superhuman.blog. I have a copy that I'm looking forward to read. I just got it 2 days ago, so I haven't read it yet.
Yeah, we're not even selling it yet, but it'll be out soon. Joe's Marketing
So be jealous. I have a copy already.
Yeah. And, for personal development stuff, a book that I've recommended a lot is The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer.
I've heard you talk about that.
Eckhart Tolle's great.
Yes.
For focus and stuff, Deep Work by my buddy Cal Newport.
Yeah.
Willpower Doesn't Work by my buddy Ben Hardy. Yeah, I mean, there's so
we got to get Cal on the show too, because I love that book.
Yeah, he's great.
Love it.
He's great. And I mean, anything by Dan Sullivan, which is why I tend to interview all the people that I think have the greatest learning that's been most helpful to me. So, yeah.
All right.
For addiction, the big book of AA is amazing. And
Second to last question. Where should we send people? I mean, I know I've endorsed I Love Marketing on the show more times than I can count. I've endorsed geniusnetwork.com more times than I can count. And I guess people should also check you out at joepolish.com.
Yeah, joepolish.com pretty much leads to almost everything. All my different podcasts, I've, 4 different podcasts that I do in marketing. Right. And so Joe, like Nail Polish, JOEPOLISH, it leads to Genius Network, my 25K group. Yeah, it leads to all the stuff I do business-wise. And then for people that are with addiction, Genius Recovery. Because Genius Network is my high-level group, and Genius Recovery is the educational platform where the goal is to change the global conversation about how people view and treat addicts with compassion instead of judgment, and to find the best forms of treatment that have efficacy and share those with the world. And so we have links to podcasts, different types of groups, videos, and it's all free. I mean, right now I'm just trying to help people, and I make my money in my business stuff so that I can fund my real, recovery project, because I want to reduce human suffering.
And that's geniusrecovery.com.
Geniusrecovery.com. And then we have artistsforaddicts.com, which is where we're offering, we did our first addiction documentary called Black Star won the Audience Choice Awards at the Sedona Film Festival a few months ago.
Which you did with Akira.
I did with Akira. And then we feature an artist, John Butcher, who's,
awesome.
He's a great guy.
Awesome. And we'll link all that stuff, and all of that will be out. I believe the Average Joe's marketing book will be out by the time this airs.
Yeah, possibly.
So, awesome. Yeah. Joe, last question before I let you go. If people take away one big message from this episode, what do you hope that it will be if they carry it with them for the rest of their lives?
Every passing moment is another chance to turn it all around. So no matter how shitty things seem, you can make a certain decision. Any problem in the world can be solved with the right Genius Network. So if you are not figuring out how to do something, then reach out to someone that can give you perspective, give you direction, or just be a helping hand. and operate that way for others so you can be the first domino, because any situation, it's rare that something is totally a loss. You're either winning or you're learning. And so if you're in a bad place, reach out to someone to help give you perspective. If that means do, a single burpee or 100 burpees and, whatever, but get yourself in a state and do that. So I know that was more than one thing, but
I love it. It's great. And Joe, I really appreciate it. Joe Polish, thank you so much for coming on the show and for all that you've done and continue to do for entrepreneurs like myself.
My pleasure, Don. And thank you. And I appreciate it.
All right, brother. All right, super friends, that is all we have for you today, but I hope you guys really enjoyed the show, and I hope you learned a ton of actionable information, tips, advice that will help you go out there and overcome the impossible. If you've enjoyed the show, please take a moment to leave us a review on iTunes or Stitcher, or drop us a quick little note on the Twitter machine at GoSuperhuman. Also, if you have any ideas for anyone out there who you would love to see on the show, we always love to hear your recommendations. You can submit on our website, or you can just drop us an email and let us know. That's all for today, guys. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks for tuning in to the Becoming Superhuman podcast. For more great skills and strategies, or for links to any of the resources mentioned in this episode, visit www.becomingasuperhuman.com/podcast. We'll see you next time.